So we're going to get into it very quickly. The first person that I would love to introduce on this panel is Alakija, the founder of Cutz. Can we get a round of applause, please? Next up, we have Itunu Umar-Lawal, the CEO of Dermaspace. Round of applause, please. No, we need only 3 chairs, is fine here. And last but definitely not the least, we have Bolanle Tyson, and she is the head of SME products at Sterling Bank. Is Bolanle Tyson with us? She's coming. Okay, so I think we're going to kind of start and get into it before. Hi ladies, how you doing? Okay, can we get a microphone on stage, or 2 microphones, please? Thank you so much. So the first question that we're going to ask, I feel like a few of the things that we're talking about here, Joycey kind of touched on it when she was talking about, when she was doing her presentation. But the first question I'll ask, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know, is how do you manage cash flow, especially during slower periods or times of economic uncertainty? Do you want to go first, Itunu?
Hello, everybody. My name is Itunu.
Say hi back.
We're almost done. After this one, I don't think.
Yes, after this one, we're done. So let's keep our energy up.
Okay, so what was your question again?
How do you manage cash flow, especially during slower periods and time of economic uncertainty?
So I think it's basically by staying as lean as possible.
Okay.
Unnecessary expenses should be cut out. Like somebody said, I think the speaker before this panel, Samuel, I don't think following trends, or you're seeing these like flashy businesses on Instagram, and they have this nice space, and you also want to open one, but sometimes it's not necessary. So staying as lean as possible. Also capitalize on your non-busy days. So for instance, with beauty businesses, that the weekends are usually, typically from like Thursdays, it starts to get busy. So what happens between Monday and Wednesdays, you can afford to then maybe do like a promo or something, slash the price, a lunch break promo, for instance. Say if you come from the office and between 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., you can maybe get a massage at half price. So that way you're still making money, even though it's not a busy period. So essentially capitalize on promotions and then keep your expenses as lean as possible.
Okay.
I agree with what you said. I'll also add to that. So even like when you have non-busy days, you can, market yourself, plan content, plan for busy days as well. So even when even when we're quiet in the salon, I never take that as a exactly. I literally just plan.
I didn't hear what she said, so you can repeat it. Oh, like free period.
Yes. Exactly. So I even capitalize on free periods. I actually like having free periods sometimes because I'm able to sit back and think and plan intentionally. I'm not ahead of myself. I can control things basically. So plan for that. Train as well. And yeah. Okay. And also just making sure that we're not wasting things. For example, in the salon, making sure we're cutting costs at all points, at all times. Yeah.
All right. I think that was definitely very broad. And my next question is, what are some common financial mistakes? Sorry, welcome for joining us, Bolanle. Welcome to joining the panel. What are some common financial mistakes that beauty business owners make, and how can they be avoided? Personalize it to your own story.
Okay, I think from what I notice is, first of all, maybe having too many staff. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't need it. So you have, for instance, a hairdressing salon, and you have like 10 people there, but they're not really doing anything, are they? So for me, I try to keep my staff as lean as possible on a need-to basis. Sometimes you can even keep them on a part-time basis. So that again, I like to work with like busy periods and non-busy periods. For me, that's how I'm able to separate the days that make money and the days that don't make money. On the days that don't make money, I don't need to have all 10 staff come in. So what I do mostly is to have part-time workers, and they start working from Thursdays to Sundays, because I know that we're very busy at that period. So yes, they don't have to. So that way I'm not paying a full salary. So that's one way to... Sorry, what was the question again? I'm rambling.
You answered the question very well. Like, so the thing was common mistakes that people make.
Common mistakes where
so
that
overhiring,
eats into your revenue. Another thing is spending unnecessarily on like gadgets or equipment that you don't really use, but because you've seen that somebody else has it or they're using it in their own business, you're like, okay, let me go and buy this machine. But you're not even using the machine. The machine is not making any money for you. So why do you have it? That's another way that people probably like expand their costs. I think those are the two things for me, really.
Tara, do you have anything to add? Okay, so my next question definitely has to go to Bolanle. And my question is, so I'm going to definitely ask you, Bolanle, as the head SME at Sterling Bank, and then I also ask Itunu and Tayo because they're actual business owners. So what advice would you give on sourcing or securing financing or loans for business expansion while maintaining financial health? I think that's the very important part of that question.
Hello? All right, thank you very much for that question. I think it's coming at the right time.
Yes, it is. It is.
So the first thing is you need to first of all understand what your business needs are. That's the first thing. Now, there are various opportunities out there. Of course, we have the business loans, but this might not be the best time to take out a loan because of what the rates are saying. Especially when it comes to commercial rates. But at the same time, we have a lot of intervention funds, a lot of grant schemes, and there are actually a lot of them. It's quite amazing that from our recent partnership with Sweden, there's been 5 billion naira sitting there for businesses to take up. Yes, at a single-digit interest rate. And not a lot of businesses are coming out for it. And this is because when you see majority of the businesses that first come for these kinds of programs, right? You find out that they're coming out for it thinking or having a mindset of it being free, right? So for example, I'm giving this example of the intervention fund at 9%, and there are several others around that scope. You even have some that are more of grants, whereby you're not repaying it back. But the ideal thing really is to first of all assess your business needs. What do you really need the funds for? What is your current expense like? Because if you're going to take a loan, even if it's at a single-digit interest rate, which is of course minimal, you still need to ensure that you still have enough capital to sustain you for liquidity, right? To make sure that your business can still stay afloat. You can't use all the money you're making to cover just expenses, and then you have nothing, readily available for that business. What we've seen as a major challenge in businesses coming out for such things is in terms of structure, in terms of what their cash flow is saying, in terms of what their financial statements and record keeping is saying. So a lot of them don't qualify. We find out that a lot of them don't qualify for it because they haven't yet put down the proper structures in place. Everyone needs capital. I'm sure if you ask anybody here in the room, everyone needs capital for one thing or the other. But by needing that capital, you need to first of all analyze, do I have the proper structures in place for someone to take me seriously and grant me a loan? Now, the loan is not only given by financial institutions. You also have people called angel investors, right? You could have somebody, it could even be a friend, it could be a family who believes in your business and says, I will put money down for this business, but in return, I would sort of have some level of equity in that business. Or I would even give you this business at no interest rate, but I expect you to return it at this period. If you are not prepared, how exactly can you take up that opportunity? So there are a lot of programs, there are a lot of single-digit interest rates. If you go to, from the Sterling site, sterling.ng/SMIDA, and you will find information about that. If you go to BOI, if you go to different organizations, you have them, both international finance corporations as well, who actually have funds on the table, but people are not coming out for it because they are not yet structured enough to actually access those loans.
Thank you. So I want to hear. So we've heard it from a financier. So let's hear it from the finances.
Okay. On the flip side, me, I've always been a person where I haven't really been comfortable with taking loans. I don't know, maybe that's because my business started. So I've always been like a saver. So I would highlight on the importance of how much it is of the importance of saving and reinvesting back into your business. And that's what's kind of helped me, because I started from a little and then I spent money to make money, and that's how it's always been, if that makes sense. So I've just stuck with what works for me. I don't know, for some reason I've always just I shy away from loans and all of that stuff, and I'd say God's grace has made it possible in that way. Yeah.
So how about you?
So on the flip side, I think the opposite of her. I find that a lot of people are afraid of credit in Nigeria, and it's a thing where it's like, don't borrow money to do, like, but why not? Like, if you have a good business plan, you've done your revenue projections, you can see that the business can take that added pressure of like your monthly repayments. Why not? I think it's a blessing that people need to take more advantage of. Of course, like, you need to pay back your loans. It goes without saying. Don't be that person that, takes money from the bank and then goes to the bank and then start to chase you. But I feel like credit is actually really good, but I mean, it's not, you can tell when that time has come in your business. I don't think it's for everybody. I don't think it's for every stage of your business. I think that at some point, if you need to expand and you are already doing well initially, then credit can be that boost you need to take your business to the next level. So I'm very pro credit. I endorse it, and I think that it's something that every business should actually look into. Of course, you need to engage your accountant. It's good to keep your books. Like she said, a lot of people are not credit worthy, and it's not because the business is not successful. It's because there's nothing for the bank to see. There's no history. How can they trust you that you're who you say you are? So I think that every business should endeavor to keep their books. And it's from day one. Don't think because you're just starting out and you're very small. There's no business that is too small. Start keeping your books, engage your accountants. There are people that, they're not as expensive as people think they are, and they're ready to help you through your books. There are apps, there are softwares. Splice is one of the softwares that, I think it's part of the things that they're working on, where you can actually put in your expenses, revenue, everything, and then over time, you can see it's something you can actually show to the bank and say, this is what we've been doing, and this is why we need XX amount of money to move to the next level. So yeah, I'm definitely pro credit, and I think I encourage every business person to look into it.
Okay, very well said. Thank you so much. I think I had this conversation recently with a friend of mine, and we're both on opposing sides. I was pro credit. She was, no, she doesn't want to take a loan. And I was like, girl, you need to take that loan. So I feel like I'll let you know where we end up eventually. So the last question that I'm going to ask is, what financial metrics do you consider most important for tracking profitability? Like, what happens in your business where you think, okay, we've just made a profit? Like, what are the key points that make you feel like, yes, we've hit a profit?
Okay, so I'll say for me, it's the cost of doing business versus how much you're charging. So for instance, I'm going to use my industry again because it's a spa. If somebody comes in for a facial and the facial costs 30,000 naira, and you see that 30,000 naira in your account, it's not your money at the end of the day, because each facial actually, it costs something to actually do that facial for that client. And it's not just even in the products that you're using, even the electricity you're paying for, the actual building, your rent, everything. So for me, the way I tend to measure profitability is after all the cost of businesses has been deducted, am I still seeing a tangible amount of money left over for the business to actually save, and also for me as the owner, because I'm not there for vibes, I'm not there, I need to actually also make profits and be able to take some money for myself and say, okay, yes, you know what, this is your reward for being a founder, take it, but then the business is still also afloat. So yeah, for me, that's how I measure profitability, money left in the bank after all the expenses have been covered.
Okay, so like what you said as well, I agree to that. For me, I just try to break it down with the products we use and the service that we render as well. I place a lot of value in the service that we render, as it's very specialized. So that's where the profit comes anyways. And then also, for example, what is the service that a customer is doing? What products do they need to use? How many, for example, how many customers can the bottle serve, if that makes sense? So I try to break it down in that way so that I know I'm not going past below that mark, and then I add the value, and then I add just other overhead costs as well. So that's how I kind of gauge it. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to the service that we're rendering as well, the customer service that comes into it, the amount of work and technique that we spend to fulfill that, customer experience as well, adds all into it as well. Yeah.
So, Bolanle, I want to ask you the same question as well, but in the sense of what are the things that a bank looks for? So let's say, for example, I want to apply for a loan. What are the key points that you look for that would make me viable or not viable for a loan?
Okay. I think the first thing is your creditworthiness. There's something we call 5 C's of credit in banking when it comes to lending, which has to do with your character. Your character is number one. You might have the capacity to repay back, but if you have a bad character, no one's going to lend to you. And that character, I'm sure you'll be wondering, how do you know my character? It's from different places, right? It could be your social accounts. It could be how well you're even paying your street dues or your association dues, right? It could be even how well you're paying things around your taxes, for example, or filing your annual returns. Business principles. How well are you taking that into consideration? It tells me about your character, because you might have the capacity, but you just decide not to pay me. So character always tops it for us. Then, of course, we're talking about the capacity. Do you have that capacity to repay back? So it means from that business, are you earning enough? And just like what they've also mentioned, in terms of you've had your projection, you're costing right and doing all of that. So, of course, that analysis comes into it. And that capacity is judged from us reviewing your cash flow, knowing what comes into your account, what goes out of your account. And in doing that, it means that you have a business account separate from your personal account. So we are not saying that you're buying Domino's pizza, except if you're treating your staff or your team, for example. So that is number 2. Then, of course, we're talking about your creditworthiness. We're going to run a credit check on you to know whether or not you're currently indebted to other places, because you can't take more than your capacity at that time. So those are some of the things. Of course, collateral, if you have collateral, it also depends on the kinds of loans, because there are different kinds of loans. It's not just cash related. It could be an asset finance. So you want to buy, let's say, a particular machine that you need for your business. So that asset becomes the collateral in that sense. So you don't necessarily need to bring any added collateral, right? Depending. So those are some of the things that are very critical for you to actually be assessed, for a loan. But of course, your cash flow is very important. It trickles down to how well you're keeping your books. It also gives you an insight into how much can I really take, right, if I'm about to take money from a bank or any other financial institution. because it tells you how much will I be left with.
Yeah.
Would I be left with a bit of cash that can run? And there's no bank that wants to collect 100% of what you're making.
Yeah.
There's usually something called the DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, right? So typically, you can only borrow up to the tune of, say, 3.3%.
Yes.
So what that means is that your repayment should not be more than 33.3% of what you're making, so that you can use the other amount of money to cover other needs,
yes.
either for business operations, ongoing business and all of that. So those are some of the critical pointers. But you would notice that everything has to do with structuring. Your character is also a part of your structure. I'm sure someone had spoken before around branding, your image and all of that. If you are known to, always owing or not keeping up to your word, no matter how much your business is making, no organization will be comfortable to lend to you, because they would know that it will be a problem in getting their money back. And of course, having that level of capacity and the different kinds of loans. So sometimes when we speak of loans, people just think of, cash, give me the cash. It could be assets. Sometimes it's easier to finance assets because they understand that that asset is what would generate business for you. So it means that that asset will always bring things in for you, and you can also have that. So those are some of the critical things that we look out for.
Hi. Okay, that's very fair. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like that even also helped me as well. So do we have any questions for this panel? Yes, there's someone in the back with a question. Is there a mic close to her, please?
Challenge that I have noticed, in my years of doing business is a lot of these funds sometimes, especially with the government agencies, they just tend to keep it, I don't know, almost, I don't want to say under wraps, but it's almost hard to even know what is going on there, because for some reason the dissemination of the information never gets down to the people that it is meant for. So, and this, it's almost like a continuous thing that happens year in, year out. And you go to an event and then somebody from the agency is there and they're like, oh, we had $10 billion, 10 billion naira that has been sitting there for 5 years. And we're like, but we didn't hear it, we didn't know. So what are the ways, and honestly, I've been thinking about this, what are the ways that, we can, or you can as a financier, because you typically would have the sort of relationship and network with these agencies, to be able to create the sort of channels and the dissemination of information to make it so much easier, clearer to the business owners that you serve, so that people even know that these things exist and how to access them and how to take advantage of them. Because I think that is such a huge challenge right now. You hear about it 10 years later and you're like, oh, I didn't even know that existed. So for me, that's the comment. Thank you.
But I'm so grateful to have everyone here, and I hope that this has been a valuable event, and that you're walking away with new knowledge, new connections, and everyone have a blessed evening, and thank you.
All right.
Bye.